Everything is fine here on Detention Block AA-23, a Star Wars podcast. I'm Mike, joined by Dustin, here to talk some Star Wars with all you fans out there, starting the new year. Well, I guess the new year's been around for a little bit. It's been here for 10 days, but we haven't gotten to speak to either. Well, this is the first time we've spoken with one another. We were talking a little bit earlier before jumping on the recording, along with the first time talking with you fans out there since the new year. So happy new year, everyone. I hope you all had a wonderful holidays, got to spend some time with family, friends, got to eat lots of food, do some celebrating, all the above. How about you, Dustin? Did you have a good time?
We did. Maybe sometime in the not so distant future we'll host holidays, but we're not there yet. We're still traveling for Thanksgiving and Christmas. We went down to St. Louis for Christmas, and that's why I haven't been on the podcast in a little bit because I've been out of town and it's tough to do podcasting, when you're with your family and all that. So traveling with young kids, as most people know, is a challenge. So we got through that. The minivan, if anybody's, followed the DeFranco minivan chronicles, you know, it was a champ. It really helped make travel great. We did have some, you know, weird mechanical things, just like a check engine light pop up. That became a big deal when we got back into town. So our van's in the shop right now, covered under warranty, we think. So not too worried about it. Just inconvenience. Um,
Hey, but traveling in comfort and style, though, right?
Hey man, I tell you, people knock minivans, but I mean, you'll never travel more comfortably, especially when you
I
have
believe you.
kids.
I believe you.
So, and cops don't pull you over because they just think you're pathetic, so you can go like 90.
Or they know you're just a family, like a large family, and they're like,
Yeah.
well, they're already having enough issues inside the car with all the kids in the back.
If I was a
So,
cop and I saw a minivan going 90 down the interstate, I'd think like some kid shat their pants and they got to get to like, come and go, right away.
would you like go in front of them and like direct them or go behind them to help follow,
Yeah,
escort them?
and we got really good weather. We were down in St. Louis. It was like 60 degrees on Christmas Eve or something. It was beautiful. And so, the one thing that sucked, and this is going, this is not probably isolated to us, right? But sickness was just bouncing back and forth. And, I think we're just finally starting to get somewhat healthy. I mean, Bennett's been out of daycare the last couple of days because he's not been feeling great. Had a fever yesterday, and luckily my wife's still on paternity leave, so it's a little bit easier to deal with. That situation arises when we're both working, and it'll be more challenging. But excited to be back, and we had a great time during the holidays. It's awesome to spend time with family. I will tell you, if you're planning a trip and you're going to spend 7 days with your family, it's 2 days too many. Okay. So, like, I love my family to death, but even that, like 2 days, a little bit too much.
Well, haven't you heard the expression there's two things that stink after 3 days, and it's fish or family?
I mean, I would say 5 days, in my opinion, is the sweet spot. Another thing is I was working when I was down there. I was making some sales calls because we have some,
Well, that's nice. So you could separate yourself a little bit from.
but so it was also stressful though because I felt like I was kind of abandoning my wife with
Mm.
two kids. So it was just and then I had to borrow someone's car because I wanted her to have the minivan. So because that's where all the car seats were. So yeah, I had a lot of fun. Not without little stress, but we're super glad to be back. I'm super glad. Never thought I'd say this in a freaking million years, but I'm so excited for these negative temperatures to come because I'm chomping at the bit to go ice fishing. My dad's actually, my mom and dad are coming up to visit in a couple, next week, so next Friday. Um, and like the plan is to take my dad ice fishing that Friday. So we need some ice, and we haven't had that. It's been crazy. You never think in middle of July, which is the coldest month, that we'd have no ice on the lakes. But I mean, a lot of them have open water.
Did you just say middle of July?
I did, and I meant January.
I know what you meant. Just had to call you out on that. Yeah, we were talking about that before we jumped on, and I mean that's really cool, and I hope you get that freezing cold weather, and you will get it. But know that I am not looking forward to it because I hate it. I don't mind snow. Like snow I don't really have a problem with. It's the freaking below zero temperatures when it like hurt, the whole thing that Minnesotans say, like, why do I live somewhere that the air hurts my face type of a thing. Like I stand by that.
I've really taken ice fishing though, and you can't do that in St. Louis. So,
Yeah,
you know, that's
totally
I guess
fair.
why I live in a place that the air hurts my face. I will never forget Mudge. Never, ever, ever. I will tell this story to all the people I will tell it to. When I moved here, it was
Oh yeah.
February 17th. It was like 70 degrees.
Mhm.
And I remember you looked at me like once we got all settled in and you laughed. You said, "Don't get used to this." And like literally the next weekend it was negative temperatures. I was like, well, I remember we went to Minnehaha Falls.
Yeah, we did.
And it's always closed down this time of year, but it was open. It was a slushy disaster, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we're used to the cold weather here. That doesn't mean we always enjoy it
And
here.
Minnesotans and a lot of these people in the northern states, so not just Minnesotans, but like Wisconsin, Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota, Montana, like they really do, like they find ways to have fun during the
Yeah,
winter.
they do. And there are a lot of things that are fun to do. But
My dad's like obsessed with like going like cross country skiing. I'm like, that's the last thing I want to do.
but you can still do those things like when the temperatures are like more from the 0 to 32 degrees side of it. Like I'm okay with that window. Once you start getting into like below zero, and we had the polar vortex that one year, like
No, yeah.
you spit and it freezes before it hits the ground. Like that is freaking cold. And what people don't necessarily understand, because like, I lived in Wisconsin for a while and now I'm in Minnesota. Both places get really cold, but there is a difference still. Wisconsin has a tendency to get more snow. And one of it is because they're by the lake. So you get that lake effect snow. And sure, you can get that up north in like Duluth and, Superior coastal line in Minnesota. But Wisconsin tends to just be a little bit warmer, which allows for more snow. Minnesota, it can get so cold that it just doesn't snow. And that is freezing temperatures. And it's the point where it's like when the sun is shining and the sky is blue, it's freaking freezing outside. But
Can't wait.
still a wonderful state to live in. But yeah, it gets cold. And speaking of Wisconsin, that's where I did go back home for the holidays, or specifically Christmas. Got to spend it with my side of the family, but Colleen's mom and brother also came down to Wisconsin for a couple days and joined us. It was Jackson's first Christmas. So it was a lot of fun to get to be around, all the family for Jackson's first Christmas. Not that he would necessarily be, excited about gift opening or anything, but my niece, who is 3.5 years old, she's at one of those good ages to be like excited for Christmas and everything. She got her first bike and she was super excited. So it was just a lot of fun to spend with family. And then we came back by the New Year's and actually got to go to the Packers Vikings game on New Year's Eve. So that's what we spent that portion of the holiday doing, watching the Packers beat up on the Vikings. Loved every minute of it. But thank you, Justin, for the tickets. Not you, Dustin. I know that Justin, not Dustin. We went with Justin and his girlfriend and had a good time doing that. So, and now we're here. We're back. We're season 4. This is the first episode of season 4. If you recall, whenever we hit the new year, we just start a whole new segment of a new season. So we're off and running. Season 4. Hard to believe that we're at this number already. Looking forward to it. All right. Should we dive into some Star Wars stuff, Dustin?
Let's just change the podcast. We're just going to do all sports all the time.
I mean, there's a lot more material and content to talk about with sports at the moment versus
I don't know,
Star
man. We've got
Wars.
some good Star Wars content, so that is kind of the exciting part.
Well, that
Nothing
is
like
true.
show-wise or, well, as far as like active
Like
shows
content.
or movies, but
right, for sure.
Yeah, let's get into it. Let's talk some Star Wars, and then I'm sure we'll maybe hit some sports at the very end.
Yeah, so there definitely has been some rumblings and rumors going around, some news
rumblings.
releases.
Ooh.
Yeah. Speaking of, I'm just
Yeah,
eating my
during the holidays. I had
now.
some rumblings. That's in my tummy.
But I think one of the biggest announcements as of recent is about the new film that will be, or that has been announced, that will be starting in production in 2024. And I think this will be the first back to big screen movie that we'll have. I don't think the Ray one will be out yet, but this one is bringing back two characters we're well familiar with recently. And it's titled The Mandalorian and Grogu. So obviously in that Mando universe.
That's the name of the movie?
Yeah, that's
Are we sure? Or is that just the initial?
That's what they said. That's what they said.
Oh, fucking A.
I know. I was just that.
I thought that was just
disappointing.
like the name of the project. I hope that's not the
It
name
was
of the movie.
italicized too. That's the name of the movie, I feel like. And they said
It makes
the
it sound
name.
like a buddy cop movie.
It makes it sound like a comic.
Ugh. Okay, so just right off the hop, I'm
Yeah.
not really excited. I'm just not. I'm sorry, but like with the last season of Mandalorian kind of going off the rails a little bit and just doing some weird things and now having this be like the first, big cinematic foray. It's just some of the things that Disney's been doing. I don't know, man. I'm not really not amped up. When they made the announcement, I kind of just kept scrolling.
Well,
They didn't really capture my attention.
I would have to believe you're not alone in that. My guess is, part of it, they're trying to take a safe route. I know season 3 kind of took a pretty decent dip in terms of the fan reception, but at the same time, the Mandalorian series show has been pretty successful, and it's Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau kind of heading this thing. So I think there's some trust there too. So I think they're kind of taking, I don't think this is the smart route, but I think they're taking a safe route in their eyes of how to get back to the big screen, like dipping the toes back into that kind of content for them to see how things get received. Because I feel like whether people are necessarily interested in it or not, meaning like not interested being kind of like what you said, what you spoke to, versus interested being familiar with it, people are still going to go watch it, just to see how the continuation of these characters progresses.
Have you seen that meme where like the guy is like shooting somebody in a chair? I think Eric Andre is this guy's name. So he shoots somebody in the chair, and he looks at the TV and he goes, "Why'd you make me do that?"
Yeah.
Like, I mean, this is the problem with these big corporations. Like Disney literally put themselves in this predicament by what they've done to the quality of the product they're putting out. And then now they want to dip their toe in the water by putting out Mandalorian and Grogu. Like, you guys did this to yourselves.
Well, that's me saying that.
I don't know if that's something new.
That's my perception of what they're doing. I don't know if that's their perception.
I think I agree with where your reasoning is. And it's okay that you're gonna dip your toe in the water because why? Because you put out fucking garbage, which was the new trilogy. So that's why you gotta dip your toe in the water. And because Solo didn't work out, because you fucked up the trilogy so bad that like fans actually revolted. And even though that was a great film,
it was one of the better movies from Disney.
Yeah. I just and Mandalorian and Grogu works as a series. Why do we have to have a movie?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's kind of
season 4.
That's kind of where my issue is. I know that, and we've talked about this before, like they've been creating all these shows and we've used the term like Infinity War moments where all of them come together. And this is, I believe, their route to that. They're bringing every series that they've put together to continue a story through film. And I don't know though, because
what would be a great movie? I don't know. All the High Republic shit that they're doing. Like, that's a great movie. They have done an incredible job building the High Republic universe. And the latest book has been excellent. I don't know if you read it yet.
Mm-mm.
I mean, it has been.
You've read it, yeah.
Read it.
Listen
to
it.
Like, it was excellent. That's this. Why not go to that? You've released the medium. You've put the content out there to build that universe up,
and they'll get there.
It's just disappointing me. I'm not fired up. I'm about as fired up for this as I am for the Cardinals offseason moves.
Well, at least you're not losing everything like we are, including our coaches. But
Hey,
um,
my joke is, the average age of our starting rotation is 36. I'm 36 now, so I'm perfect for the Cardinals. Sign me up.
sign them up. Sign them up.
League
There,
minimum. I'm in.
you've got a wicked knuckleball, right?
I got a wicked BP fastball.
Oh, okay. With a fungo bat, use a fungo bat.
Yeah, yeah, maybe I'd stand a chance. But anyway, yeah, not super excited, man, and for all the reasons listed. So
Well, and
I'm a bummer.
I wouldn't say like I'm not like I get excited for any, you know me, anything Star Wars. I get super excited about. I whether or not I have hesitations about it, you know, but I think I do agree with you on certain elements. Specifically, you were talking about this was a TV series, and we've talked about, as I mentioned, like Infinity War moments. Well, all those were movies. Those were all movies that they brought together within another like movie. You're bringing TV series into a movie, and these TV series always already feel like I mentioned about the title itself, like comics. They're more short episodic type things versus a whole grand story. So it'll be interesting to see how Dave Filoni and crew pull this out. Like I said, it goes into production in 2024. So 2026, 2027 timing, maybe the film would be released, I would assume.
I mean, another thing is like, I like, what story are they going to tell that's going to be compelling? I mean,
Well, I think it's that culminating event, and it's probably going to be bringing in like Thrawn, and like
but even they bungle that.
propelling it into the sequel trilogy. I think that's kind of the direct, or they might also take another side route and go to this whole new universe or that's been discovered, or galaxy. I don't know. It's TBD. I'm sure as time goes on we'll get more information about it, and maybe even from the stuff that gets released between now and then we'll give more indication of where that's going. But
I mean, they
all we
fucked up Thrawn so bad. I just
I know you didn't
like
I disagree.
the character, the actor who played him did as well as he could with the script he was given. It's like, sir, we've just been beaten down by the Jedi. Like we've lost in humiliation. Oh, perfect. That's good. Everything is going according to plan. What? That's
uh,
never how he behaved in the show.
well
He was always two steps ahead.
well yeah, and I think he still was,
No.
because
I'm sorry that maybe the actor did a poor job in portraying that, because it almost felt like he's like, oh shit, yeah, that's exactly what I wanted, just for all the
you
Death
sound like
Troopers
Dark
to die.
Helmet or something like that. Dark Helmet from Spaceballs. That's what you sound like right now.
Good,
Um,
that's a good impression. That's how he acts in the show.
See, and the way I look at it is that all his objective was to get out of there. Everything else was just kind of moot. Whatever happened, he didn't really care. Um, he did
That's
care.
not who
He
Thrawn
did.
is.
Well,
I mean,
he's very
I read all the
strategic.
books.
He's very, I know, I've read at least half of them. He's very strategic. Everything is purposeful, and he doesn't want any like loose ends to be left. So his objective, and he was going to achieve that objective, was to get out of there, and he was going to use whatever means to do that.
So here's my thing: if you're gonna do that, explain it. Because here's another thing: a lot of this was Thrawn's first introduction
To people,
to
for sure.
fans who weren't reading the book. I mean, there's no explanation for his moves. It just looks like he got his ass kicked left and right.
Well, he said that though. He said like,
But
no,
he could have
we're
said, what would have made it more convincing is if he sends off the troopers and then he explains, like, like right as he does it, like, hey, this is just, these guys are cannon fodder. We're just blah, 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 doing this. And, it just felt like he was making moves by the seat of his pants.
Well, I will say though, I think there is a moral side to Thrawn, his character, and that's what I've picked up at least in the books and everything. Like he cares about life. He cares about his crew and everyone that's there. Um, and he even said that too in the series when the Night Sisters or the witches or whatever were sending more troopers out, and he's like, well, do they know what they're sacrificing themselves for, or do they know what's to happen? And the Night Sister or the witches were like, yeah, they've been informed. And that to me was part of his personality. Like that's him caring and respecting his troops enough. And he also understands that they don't have many left, and he needs these resources to help accomplish his overall objective, which is why he was trying to hold on to as many as possible. So uh, I think what didn't help in terms of like new fans getting that perspective, because I agree, like I really wish Dave Filoni wouldn't have said like you don't need to watch or you don't need to have any previous knowledge of the stories or anything to watch this, because I really think you needed to get a better understanding of it. But
He
maybe
absolutely did. Like there was no
yeah,
there's no explanation as to really who Thrawn was or why he was so
right,
feared
right.
by Ahsoka to come back.
And I think that was a huge miss. And I think it's a timing element too. Like you only get a certain amount of time to show these episodes, and Thrawn and them weren't even in it all that too much because there's other stories that are kind of going on. You've got Balin Skull, you've got Ezra, you've got Sabine and Ahsoka. Like there's just so many things going on.
But again, right, so you know, big chunk of the plot was that Ahsoka was going to do anything it took not to get Thrawn back.
Mhm.
So there's context that this guy is dangerous.
Mhm.
But then when he's introduced, like nothing he does seems dangerous. Like he just
Yeah.
a lot of the moves he made, you could put the Benny Hill music to, you know, and for the general audience, I mean, for me, I know Thrawn's a badass. I know
Yeah.
why he's a badass. I've
Yeah.
read all the subtext, right? But for the average fan, they're like, why
Yeah.
are we afraid of this guy?
I think that's fair. I think that's totally fair.
Because he's
And
got red eyes and he's blue. Like he
I
looks like
think
a evil Smurf.
I think in season 2 we'll get more
I hope
as
so.
and they part of this news release about the Mandalorian Grogu movie, they kind of like threw this in at the end of it. Like, oh, and season 2 of Ahsoka will be in production as well. So we've got solid proof, solid confirmation that a season 2 of Ahsoka will happen. I think we all expected and anticipated that. But hopefully they go more into the whole Thrawn, who he is, how menacing he can be. Because I think there's a lot of good that could come out of that in terms of entertainment and whatnot if they do it correctly. And I still believe Filoni can do that correctly because he is part of what created that. I mean, he didn't because the character existed prior to Clone Wars, but he did a great job with Ron or Rebels, but he did a great job with Ron in Rebels. So
This is my big ask of Disney. Please, please stop putting cutesy animals
they're
in
not.
shows.
They're not.
It's so dumb. It ruins it. I mean, ruins the episodes a lot of times. Like the scenes with those little fucking turtle looking things, right? Were so cringe and boring. I didn't care whether they lived or died. I was actually hoping that some of them would bite the dust. At least it would also be some like emotional, consequences. But nope, they all live, they basically have the most outdated technology, in the galaxy, and
in
somehow
the new galaxy, right?
and they just bog down the episodes because I don't give a flying fuck that Ezra is trying to protect them. I do not care about them one little bit. I don't care about the Pogs. I don't care about the fucking little frog eggs that Grogu's trying to eat. Like, why are we putting? I mean, I know why. I know why. Stop doing it. You can't sell that much merchandise to make it worth ruining the show over.
Well, and one, it's Disney, so that's not going to happen. They're going to continue to do it. I mean, every Disney film, I feel like that is made for a broad audience always has things like that. But I don't know how much of that is Disney and how much of it is Filoni, because I mean, those creatures were very Clone Wars-esque. You know, we've seen a lot of the animation that Filoni did with it. We almost saw the exact same type of thing in Clone Wars, where was it Anakin, Ahsoka? They were like training these similar creatures. They were a little more advanced, I would say. They talked and you could understand. Well, I mean, the creatures from the Ahsoka show could talk, but they spoke English and you could understand what they were saying. But
I mean,
remember
like,
that,
and I do get like Return of the Jedi, they're the Ewoks, right? So I mean, they
yeah,
Star Wars has been known to do this even in the original trilogy, but at least the Ewoks were kind of badass and kind of brutal, Like
yeah.
these little turtle things were so like just pathetic. I just, you know, like the Ewoks went out and like took care of shit, right? Dude, they fucking crushed,
They
the
were gonna,
ATST
yeah.
with these little turtles just like
Hey, the Ewoks freaking ate the stormtroopers because you see their helmets, all right, and they eat the meat, and they were gonna cook freaking Luke, um, Luke, Han,
yeah, those
all
Ewoks
of them.
were badass. They were cutesy, but they were badass. A lot of
Yeah,
the, stuff that, and you believed it. You believed it based on, how they brought him along into the movie. I mean, these turtle things, again, I don't give a shit about them. And also because their technology is so behind, it bogs down the episode because they're driving these little turtle things at like 2 miles an hour. Like it looks terrible.
did it give you vibes of Book of Boba Fett with the Vespa chase?
Yes. I never thought I'd say this, but I'd rather take the Vespas.
You'd rather take the Vespas over these creatures?
Abso-fucking-lutely.
I would have rather taken the creatures. The Vespas. That will be. There are two vivid moments in my mind that I wish I could just like cast away from Star Wars content. That Vespa was one of them, and then that episode, not the whole episode because part of it was still really good, but the whole um Lizzo and Jack Black episode portion. Like, I wish I could just get that out too. But the Turtles things didn't bother me as much. Yeah, I agree. It was kind of like completely cutesy, probably not necessary, but super pathetic. And maybe that was part of the intention. Like, that's Ezra's character, is he helps like even the most pathetic of creatures. I don't know, but I don't think Disney's or Star Wars is going to be moving away from those anytime soon, unfortunately. Um, even
I
in
disagree, but whatever. I'll keep watching.
even in Rogue One, they have, and Andor, they'll throw in stuff like that. Not to the same level, by no means to the same level, but you still get like those creature cutie things that they can sell merchandise later on. So, but we'll see. We'll see how it moves forward. And so I have here from Star Wars news. So this is just information about the movie, more just from interviews. So it says, I have loved telling stories set in the rich world of that George Lucas created, said Favreau. The prospect of bringing the Mandalorian and his apprentice Grogu to the big screen is extremely exciting. And then Kathleen Kennedy is quoted, Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni have ushered into Star Wars two new and beloved characters, and this new story is a perfect fit for the big screen. I don't know if I agree with that, but and then let's see. The Mandalorian and Grogu will lead Lucasfilm's ongoing feature development slate, including films helmed by Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy, which we'll get to her in a second, James Mangold, and Dave Filoni, who is also currently developing Ahsoka Season 2 among those in the works. And then that just lists like some announced dates that Star Wars is looking to have films. So the speculation is that this one will be either the May 22nd, 2026 slot or the December 18th, 2026. We'll see. I think that December one will be Rey's and the May will be this Mandalorian. But either way, we're getting Star Wars back in the big screen. And hey, I'm going to go and I'll go to the movie, whether I end up enjoying it a lot or very little. It's still a time that I can go to the big screen, get my big tub of popcorn, my drink, and watch a movie for about 2.5 hours. And hey, it provides some great opportunity and content that we can bring to this podcast.
Yeah, 2 years from now.
Yeah, 2 years. True.
Longer than that, 2.5 years.
Season 6 of Detention Block AA-23. We'll be connecting with it. But I'm one of those people that like to go. I won't go. Well, I did used to go to the midnight showings when they did it, but they have now moved more towards like a late day first time showing, right?
I mean, this is one of those movies where I'm like, I'm gonna wait to see what the reaction is before I go.
Why? Why wouldn't you want to formulate your own opinion?
Because I rely on the opinions of others. No, because
No, that does not sound like you.
I'm not like, I'm really not jazzed up to even like think about going to the opening night.
What about having like a movie marathon before it? Or
I'll do that. All day long. That doesn't mean I have to go see the movie the second it comes out.
Well, true. But I do want to go as early as like not a midnight showing. Kids and everything now. I just don't have the energy. But I think the most recent movies, they had like a 8 o'clock in the evening first day type of thing. So that's what I'll hit up. I'm more of a $5 Tuesday kind of guy anyways. That's when I usually go to my movies. Because I
haven't been to a movie theater in
I went with my
3-4 years.
I went with my brother over the holidays, and that was the first time in probably over a year that I've gone to a movie. We saw the new Wonka movie, which was pretty good.
Which new one?
The Wonka.
Oh,
it's like the prequel to the Willy Wonka story.
Yeah,
it's pretty good.
I don't know, man. The one thing I really do miss about the pandemic was just having movies that go straight to like HBO Max, or now it's just Max. And like when they did that with Dune, oh my God, I loved every fucking second of that. Get home from work, or actually, made time on the weekend, made my own popcorn, and I've gotten pretty good at making popcorn almost taste like that movie theater stuff.
Oh yeah.
And sit on the couch, start watching the movie, drink a beer or two. In the middle of the movie, I had a couple beers. I got to take a tinkle, pause, take a tinkle, go back, open up another beer, make more popcorn.
That is the nice part. The restrooms. I swear, any movie that's like 2.5 hours or longer, I always have to get up at one point to use.
Of course you do. And it ain't gonna get any better.
I know it's only gonna get worse. It's gonna be 2 times a movie here pretty soon. But
2 things are getting smaller: my bladder and my hairline. And maybe one other thing.
I was hoping we would avoid that. But I do really enjoy the movie experience. Like, the movie experience for me isn't just the movie itself. It's, the popcorn, the idea of going to a theater and like sitting down and I can just like, this is all that's there. Because even if when you're watching at home, there are things that can go on around you, like distractions that can take you away. And, oh, I have to hit pause and go, do that. Versus being in a theater, like you're there for the 2.5 hours or whatever. And that's it. Like, there's part of that I really enjoy. So it's just an added benefit that a movie is good. So hopefully, we'll see. We'll see how this goes. The next thing I have here, it's a little more controversial. Wouldn't you say?
Everything's controversial now.
Well, that's true. There's also some buzz that's been going around about the director of the new Rey movie, that will be coming out probably around the same time that the Mandalorian Grogu movie is coming out. There's information that's being taken out of context. It's kind of a mess right now, and it's a big distraction, I think, for the Star Wars franchise right now. And hopefully, well, I know it's not going to get cleared up or anything. People take their sides and then they kind of stick to it. And that's just not with movies. That's with anything in general. But so Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy, apologize if I'm not pronouncing that correctly, told CNN in a televised interview recently that it's about time that we had a woman come forward to shape a story in a galaxy far, far away, adding that she's thrilled about the upcoming project. I don't think I have to say anything to give anyone any indication of where some people might have problems with this. And me personally, like, I don't care what stance people take on certain things like that. I mean, I do, but I don't. I just don't understand why you would come out and say that, knowing the kind of reaction that certain people might have with it. Like, I feel like that's already setting yourself up for failure when the movie comes out. And I think of the movie Solo and how bad that did because of, certain things that were going on. It was, as you, I think, put it, a boycott towards Star Wars. Like, wouldn't the fear be that this would happen too? Like, maybe she's not afraid, but if you were Star Wars, if you were their franchise, would you have a concern if your director came out and stated that? Like, I agree. Like, why would we not want more, female leaders in terms of the storytelling of Star Wars? But at the same time, what is that saying about the female directors we've already had, like in the TV shows? Maybe she's just referring to specifically films here because she would be the first for film. But what are your thoughts, Dustin?
Well, I mean, some of the best content we've had as of recently for the Star Wars stuff has been from female directors in the TV shows, like, Bryce Dallas Howard comes to mind.
Exactly.
So I don't necessarily agree with that thought that, because women have already come in and improved the series. And I'm all about, like, again, I know we'll probably lose some listeners, but I like to compare to the Cardinals, like, and when you've had such an echo chamber, oh yeah, what you're doing is great. Keep doing what you're doing, it's great. Sometimes you need the outside voice to say, hey, you know what you're doing isn't as good as it was. How do we get it back to where it was? I'm not saying that it has to be a female. I mean, it could be a man or a woman, but Bryce Dallas Howard came in and really did some amazing things.
And Deborah Chow has done amazing things too.
Yeah. I agree with the sentiment that, like, yeah, like, if it paves the way for more women, I understand, like, I try to be open-minded and understand, like, we've had good for a long time, so there's some room for some other voices,
Oh, absolutely.
But here's the thing. How do you not learn from, like, the Bud Light fiasco that, like, you don't piss off your base, and your base is kind of like nerdy white guys?
Well, yeah. And, like, the only way you're going to succeed is by not allowing the film to tank. So the more attention you bring to it in a way that's, like, outside of the actual story and everything, I feel like can only hurt the potential of that. Like, okay, now we have the first female film director. Perfect. Let's nail this. Let's do a great job. Let's, be an example for Star Wars to set the path, for future female directors to come in. But I mean, we've already seen, it doesn't take far in social media if you're looking up Star Wars to see some of the backlash that has been a result of this. Like, that's only going to hurt the potential simply by stating those remarks of the film instead of just like, let's get the film out there. Like, let's concentrate on producing a good story right now. Let's get it out there, let it succeed. And then we can be like, this is what happens when you can bring in, female director leads for films. Look at the success we can bring. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, and I mean, like, let's not put the cart before the horse, right? Because she said, "Oh, it's about time for."
Yeah,
Well, let's make it good first, right? Before we
that's
start,
my point.
taking victory laps. And it kind of reminds me of those fucking TikTokers and YouTubers that like take these videos of them like doing these like really charitable things. But
Yeah.
you're only doing that because you're making a content out of it. Like, are you just saying this because, you're making this stuff in the Star Wars universe, right? And let's not forget, like, the IP came from George Lucas, right? So like none of this would exist without his, mind and willingness to get this done. So, I just think I agree, like, we want more diversity, we want more inclusion
You
in
agree?
things.
You agree
Totally
with the
agree with that.
sentiment of it? Yeah.
It's just, don't draw attention to yourself before you need to.
Absolutely. And that's kind of what I'm saying. Cause like, I want it to succeed in that regard, but and to your point, you're talking about social media influencers or whatever that do things just for the sake of getting like the likes and the attention and everything. I don't know if she's necessarily doing this because she has to be.
I guess I
smart.
also don't know the context of like why she even said what she said. So, I guess we're maybe arguing about something that we don't know. Was she asked that specifically? Like, how do you feel about being the first woman,
Well, that's
director
true.
to be in the cinema?
That's
I
a
mean, what else is
very
she going to say?
important.
So I do want to understand the context a little bit more. We are talking about it without the full knowledge. I don't like doing that.
That's very important.
I think that's done way too much nowadays. Like, people will just talk about things that because it's a hot button topic and it gets the clicks. So, did the interviewer say, "Hey, how do you feel about being the first female director in the Star Wars universe?" And she says, "Yeah, it's about time." That's totally reasonable thing to say. So
It is, but at the same time, like, we know the atmosphere of our culture these days, and people are going to spin that out of context. Which again,
which is kind of what we're doing. So I mean, we're
well,
not without our flaws.
I know, but we are just reporting to what rumors and what news is being, brought to the forefront. Again, to your point, we don't know the complete context of it. So we don't know the complete validity or purpose behind the statement. But what we do know is that there is a reaction within the fan base that is stemming from the comments. And that's kind of what we're speaking to in terms of being concerned about how this backlash can impact the success of the story or the film, which can get in the way of the purpose and the, and importance of getting female leads to tell stories within, or not leads, female directors to tell stories within the Star Wars franchise. Like, that's what we're more speaking to, not necessarily the specifics behind what was said or how it was said. And like, another important factor in this, speaking of out of context, a lot of people who are reacting negatively to this are pulling in comments from like 8 years ago that she made, talking about how she loves making men uncomfortable and using that as like a supporting device for why they have issues with her making that statement. Again, completely taking that second quote that I'm referring to out of context, because that had nothing to do with Star Wars, and that had to do with documentaries that she was working on that relate to inequality in her home country of Pakistan. So again, like, context is important. Can't support that enough from what you said. And but going to the original comment, it makes me nervous. I mean, how many people in today's world will say one thing and then end up getting canned for something they said taken out of context? And so there are repercussions to things you say. So you really have to be careful and mindful of what you say, no matter if you're coming out and saying it yourself, if you're being asked a question. I mean, I get it. I wasn't in her position or in her situation. Like, if she was being interviewed and asked that specifically, I probably might have said the same thing. But what would have been better is if, like, she tried to phrase it in a way that's not like, it's about time, making it very, I don't know, a little more dramatic, I would say. But I can't say
she should get into like the sports answer.
Yeah.
I guess there's a reason they do that the way they do.
There is absolutely a reason why they do that. And it's to save their ass.
My favorite, one of my favorite scenes of Bull Durham is he's explaining like all the bullshit cliches you should give the media.
Yeah. But that, I mean, don't you agree? Isn't that why they do that? So they don't get themselves into trouble one way or another? They're probably coached to say those type of things.
Oh God, yes. These teams have their own PR people and media relations people. So yeah, absolutely. And I just find it funny.
Yeah.
It's just,
and I get it. She's an activist. So it's her area of expertise. So it's important to her. So she's probably excited and very passionate about it. So I totally understand why she would say that. And I think the people that are backlashing against it also need to understand that as well. Like, she's entitled to her opinion, like whether you like it or not. Like, this is something she's passionate about. I'm sure people have passionate things that, they get excited for. And, so there's two sides to every coin, one way or another.
And that's okay. It's okay to disagree. This is the thing that has gone kind of haywire in our society. It's like, oh, if you disagree with me, you're the worst person on the planet.
It's important to disagree. It's how we progress,
Yeah.
It's how we advance. It's how we get multiple ideas. Like, why would you want to live in a world where everyone thought the same thing?
Dude, some of the best teaching moments are when you disagree with somebody and then you realize you're wrong, and then you're able to learn from that experience. Failure is the best teacher, as they say. So
yeah, even what was Yoda's line? Failure. Now I have to look at, well, he made some kind of reference to failure, like failure, the greatest teacher is, or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, he literally said that, like when the tree was burning and he's like, the sacred texts.
Yeah. The Last Jedi. He said that. So agreed. And accountability is an important element of that too. Like, if you're wrong, understanding you're wrong, admitting you're wrong, and learning from it. And maybe right or wrong is the wrong way to put it, but yeah, disagreeing is okay. Having different opinions is okay. There's more than one way to skin a cat. Like, that's how I feel like a lot of things with politics. In many things with politics, we all want the same outcome. It's just
in
the route.
Case,
the route.
More than one way to skin a loath cat.
Yeah, exactly. There's more than one way to skin a loath cat. Many of us have the same objective that everyone else has. There's just a different path people would like to see to get there. So let's be mindful. Let's be tolerant and open-minded. How much time you got?
I'm good. Maybe another 15, 20 minutes.
Okay. I think that's a good enough time. So I had one other topic here. David Beinhoff and Dan Weiss revealed to Hollywood Reporter for the first time about their shelved Star Wars idea. So if you recall, I don't know if it was supposed to be one movie or like a trilogy. I originally heard it was a trilogy, that the two of them. So these are the people who did Game of Thrones. I think, do they do Breaking Bad as well?
I don't think so, but maybe. I don't think so.
I know they did Game of Thrones.
Definitely know
And
that.
yeah. And I thought they were supposed to have a trilogy, and there's all this movement towards it and all this talk, and then all of a sudden they got that.
Then Game of Thrones ended, and everyone's like, maybe we don't want to touch these guys with the 10-foot pole.
Well, and the speculation of that is they caught wind that they were going to be doing Star Wars, and like, let's wrap this Game of Thrones things up and let's start concentrating.
Yeah, they hit the wrap it up box.
Yeah, because Star Wars and Disney will be giving them so much more money than Game of Thrones. But who knows what the actual reason. But so they came forward for the first time talking about that and kind of their experience. And
this is my first time hearing this, so I'm actually kind of excited to hear what their thought was. I know you kind of briefly talked about it earlier.
Yeah. So this is what I have here. Okay. The duo confirmed media reports from 2019 that they were looking at the early days of the Jedi, but added some details. We wanted to do the first Jedi, Binoff says. Basically how the Jedi Order came to be, why it came to be, the first lightsaber, ... And we were annoyed as hell when Rian Johnson's, the duo's longtime friend and Three Body Problem producer, called his movie The Last Jedi. Weiss said dryly, he completely destroyed the obvious title for what we were working on. Now that might be a little more tongue in cheek, like that might be sarcastic. He says they were frustrated, but if they work with him, maybe they were just, why? Of course he did, because that's not what acts the whole thing. Asked what went wrong, Binoff says that Lucasfilm ended up not wanting to do a first Jedi story. We had a very specific story idea in mind, and ultimately they decided they didn't want to do that. And we totally get it. It's their company and their IP, but we weren't the droids they were looking for. Good touch right there. The duo were far from the only ones that had their Star Wars movie taken away. Lucasfilm also decided against making Star Wars projects from top creatives like Kevin Feige, Patty Jenkins, Damon Lindelof. Yet Binoff and Weiss' overall concept still might happen. Lucasfilm announced a movie titled Dawn of the Jedi from the Indiana Jones and Dial of Destiny director James Mangold. So, according to them, there was just not an interest for that time period.
I'd be way more interested in that than fucking Mandalorian and Grogu.
Well, and it's funny because that's what Lucasfilm said. And then at the end, like I mentioned, there's a different movie, Dawn of the Jedi, that's kind of the same thing. So obviously what Lucasfilm was telling Binoff and Weiss wasn't necessarily accurate, maybe. But I agree, like, that's got Old Republic written all over. Well, even prior to the Old Republic, that's even going further back. And I mean, that's where we want Star Wars to dip their toes in. Like, let's go outside of where we are. Let's branch into something new. Let's get creative here. Some original content. Let's see what we can do. So to me, I feel like it has to, well, it doesn't have to be, but I think the whole season 7 of Games of Thrones really played a part in this. And this was just kind of their Lucasfilm's response to it. I do think it's funny that their film was going to be titled, or at least the first one, The First Jedi. And then Rian Johnson has The Last Jedi. Like, you're going to have films come out shortly after one another. One, The First Jedi, one, The Last Jedi. Probably not.
I don't know. I don't think it would have bothered me one little bit.
It wouldn't have stopped me from watching the movie.
You can always change the name. That seems to be that.
Yeah.
They clearly that's tongue in cheek. Clearly that's meant to, they have a friendship with.
Yeah. That's how I take
Johnson too. So, I don't. You can always change the name of a film. I mean, didn't they do that with The Force Awakens?
I don't remember. Maybe.
So.
Yeah, and they do that.
Sorry, they did it with Rise of Skywalker. Like, obviously, they did it with Rise of Skywalker because that wasn't. They didn't know that they were going to introduce Palpatine.
That's true. That's true.
Somehow, Palpatine has returned. Oh God!
God bless us. Oh, that is just one of the most uncreative
Speaking of
headline.
uncreative, hot garbage. I don't know if you saw Rebel Moon.
No,
Holy shit, was
I
that?
can't tell you how excited I was for it. And speaking of not wanting to listen to other people to impact me to watch a movie or not, it's kind of impacted me to watch that.
It should be called Rebel Tropes.
Rebel tropes.
I'll send you they did honest trailer on it.
Okay.
And honestly, just watch the honest trailer. It's better than watching the movie. I was a little hammed up, I was watching with my dad and I fell asleep. I don't even remember the ending.
I remember watching the trailer and I was like, man, this looks pretty good. I'm definitely curious to watch this. And
You'll really like the honest trailer. I know
is it
you
Apple
will.
TV?
Well, it's Netflix. It's on Netflix.
Netflix? Okay. And that was who did that?
That was Zack Snyder.
Schneider, that's right. Zack Schneider.
I love
And
how so like one of the jokes in the
Honest
honest
Trailer?
trailers is like Zack Snyder can't just keep saying that there's like a better movie, with his director's cut. And I just think of that meme from Breaking Bad where Jesse Pinkman's like, he can't just keep getting away with this.
God, how good of a show is that though? Breaking Bad.
Excellent show. I didn't get into it till like way after it must have been
Same
5 or 6
here.
years. And
Same here. I
it
didn't
was,
watch it until all the seasons were released.
yeah, it's one of those shows like once I got into it, I binged the absolute F out of it. But
That was
hey,
good.
speaking of shows that are good, I would recommend the Echo show that's on Marvel on Disney. It's basically
Bringing back some of the Netflix characters from there.
yep. So I just watched I watched the first episode and it's hooked me. I want to watch the rest of the season. But you got Kingpin, Daredevil makes an appearance. I mean, hopefully that's not a spoiler.
Well, even Echo was from those original ones. That was like his sidekick.
Yeah. So I just find it funny. I don't remember. It's been so long since I saw like. I mean, Daredevil. They blew Daredevil as a show out of the water. It was incredible, and I just it's been so long since I've seen it. I don't necessarily remember all the. I definitely remember. Vince D'Onofrio's portrayal of Kingpin is just so good. It's so good. But
Yeah,
yeah. Anyway, Echo I'd recommend if you're looking for a show.
because what were all the different? They did Daredevil. They did
They
Iron
did Iron
Fist,
Fist. They did Jessica
Jessica
Jones,
Jones,
and then Luke.
Luke Cage, and I wasn't Kingpin in all of those, or at least in multiple ones.
Kingpin was like the bad guy in pretty much all of those,
Yeah,
except Jessica Jones. For the first season, that
right.
was the one guy that was played so well,
Yeah,
like Whisper guy.
yep.
What do they call him? I forget.
I can't remember, but I think it was in Daredevil that Echo was in and was like his sidekick because I think the whole thing was like because Daredevil's blind and Echo is deaf, right?
Correct.
So they kind of played off that a little bit. But yeah, it was fantastic. So I do want to watch that. I didn't get they also did a show where they brought all those together, all those characters. What was that? The Defendants?
The Defenders.
The Defenders.
Yep. And that was
I
actually pretty decent. Iron Fist was a giant fucking disaster
yeah,
nightmare.
I
They make an
didn't
honest
watch
trailer
that
about
full
that.
one.
Like,
I didn't watch that full one.
the main character didn't even like take the training seriously, so like the choreography was so bad.
Yeah, it wasn't good.
Yeah.
The others were good, specifically Jessica Jones and Daredevil. Those two were my favorite of those.
I mean, the first season of Jessica Jones, you just remember how much you hated the bad guy in that. Like, he
Yeah.
just like talk about like a good bad guy that you hate
Yeah.
that like draws you into the show. That was one of those.
It was great.
They call him Mr. Whispers or something like that. I forget what they called him.
And then Kingpin's also big in Spider-Man. More so in the Spider-Verse animated films, but he's also in like the comics and everything too. So
Yeah, hey man, speaking of great films, is Into the Spider-Verse and
I have to see that second animated one. I've heard great things
dude,
about it.
oh my goodness, it is freaking phenomenal.
First one was phenomenal. Like
This is better.
better than the first
It's
one.
better.
Yeah,
They
I'm
outdid
excited to watch it.
themselves.
I'm excited to watch it.
Yeah, I mean it's on Disney, I bet.
Yeah, it's on Disney.
I watched it on the plane. It was great. It was like it was such a good movie that like I forgot that I was even on a plane. Like you land and you're like, holy shit.
Maybe no, I won't have enough time because I'm flying into Chicago and out of Chicago next Thursday, same day for work. I'm not looking forward
Yeah,
to
I mean
that.
that's
Not a
you
long
won't
enough
have
flight
enough
though.
time. And I doubt you'll have one of those planes with the TV screens. It's too
Probably
short a
not.
flight.
It'll just be the propeller, little things. And
I mean,
yeah,
I'll just put you on a drone.
I won't even get a glass of water or anything. Um, but yeah, so that's what we have to talk about Star Wars for today. Kind of wrap that up here. So I'll just speak to our social media handles. You can find us on Twitter at DetBlock AA-23 pod, on Instagram at detention_block_AA_23. Then our Facebook group and YouTube channel, Detention Block AA-23, a Star Wars podcast. Bring us your likes, follows, subscriptions, downloads, ratings, all of it. We greatly appreciate any little thing you can do. It goes a long way in getting our podcast name out there amongst.
Like and hit that subscribe button, bro.
Somewhere
I hate
around
that. I hate
here.
when they do that in videos.
Should we put in that button, that subscribe button that pops up on our video?
When are we gonna start having like a drink sponsor like balls? Remember that?
Hey, talk to your brother. Talk to your brother.
Do I have to?
Well, you don't have to.
Just kidding.
Talk to your dad to talk to your brother.
Nah.
But yeah, any little thing you can do, we greatly appreciate it. Definitely helps get our podcast name out there amongst the hundreds of Star Wars podcasts. So greatly appreciate it. And with that, anything else you want to speak to or have on
Just some sports stuff offline.
Go Pack, go baby!
Yeah, there you go. It's gonna be a tough game against the Cowgirls, but
yeah, but we've already won our season. Like this term gets thrown out a lot as a reason for Packer fans, but house money. We're playing on house money, man.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, obviously way ahead of where we thought we were going to be,
collectively.
Well, and then just to have that continuation of franchise quarterback.
I love the quote from I think it was one of the former Chicago Bears players. Like he said, I want a quarterback like the Packers have. He's like, why is it, or when they have a rebuild year, they make the playoffs. When we have a rebuild year, we get the first overall pick. Like it's great. We're in a rebuild year and we're making the playoffs. That says a lot. I don't have high hopes for beating Dallas, but I also know Dallas has a tendency to choke during the playoffs. So I'm hoping that comes to fruition again. And hey, how about your merger for your Battlehawks?
Yeah, man. I mean, I've been very frustrated with the XFL. That's the league I followed. I didn't really follow the USFL, but like just the messaging out of it in the last 6 months has just been fucking piss poor. And I mean, even now it's bad. Even now, like you think they would learn. I mean, your messaging and keeping fans involved and engaged is number one. It's probably, in my opinion, the easiest thing to do and the hardest thing to do, but like they've been doing such a shitty job of it. Like for instance, who doesn't love a draft? Everyone loves a draft, except maybe Donald Trump. But everyone loves a draft. But so here's what happens: 4 USFL teams, 4 XFL teams. They merged the league, so there's 8 total teams. Even though there were 16, if you would have combined them like 1 for 1. I get it though. Like you're trying to keep the league solvent and profitable, and that's the quickest way to do it. But then, so you have now 8 teams that are gone. They're dissolved. And all those players and a lot of really good players. So the best thing this is going to do is really condense that talent. Right now, you're not having two leagues competing for talent. You just have this one spring football league. So they had a dispersal draft, right? So these players that were on these other teams now are being drafted into the 8 existing teams.
Sure.
And the way they did it was, I think, pretty clever. Only the USFL teams could only pick the old USFL players, and the XFL teams could only pick the old XFL players. And then what you have now is these two conferences, the XFL conference and the USFL conference, that are going to battle each other, right? I think that's compelling. But they didn't even like announce the picks. They basically said, okay, it's going to happen Friday. So it happened last Friday. And then we're going to announce the results on Monday. How boring is that?
Yeah, I mean, I bet if it was up to them, they would broadcast it. But I'm sure, knowing what they're going up against in terms of with football,
you know who owns the league now?
Who?
Fox.
Yeah, but they also play NFL games. They also play college football games.
Well, I think what you're going to
college
start to
basketball
see is you're going to start to see a very strong partnership form with the NFL and the UFL. I think that's what they have to do. So
what they should have done it on like a Wednesday prime time, where they could have like broadcasted the draft or whatnot, because you're not going to be competing with, more primetime sports like NFL or college football during a Wednesday evening. Sure, there might have been college football games, but they're not the games that people are particularly interested in. So
this is what an Uber fan thinks. I'm an Uber fan. Okay. This has been so rushed and like thrown together. It's a little embarrassing. Like, for me as a fan that wants the league to succeed. Like, how do these smart people not understand that, like, this looks bad? And so I'm excited for the merger. I think it was possibly, I don't know this is my conjecture, probably the only way that the league was going to survive long term, to put the financial might. So if you have Fox on one side, you have The Rock and Danny Garcia and Redbird Capital on the other. Combining that financial might will allow the league to survive at least another couple of years, right? And by that point, now you're starting to build some real fans. Another thing that they're going to do that the USFL didn't do is actually play in home markets. So the Michigan Panthers are going to play in Michigan, Detroit.
That's good.
Battlehawks are going to play in St. Louis.
That's
really important. But they're still doing the hub thing where, like, all the practices happen in Arlington. And again, I understand it. You want to keep costs down, right? But then you're not getting like the community involvement, right? That's the one thing that, big in the NFL, right? Like the players out in the community, they're doing philanthropic things. They're going to high school game, maybe not anymore, but like, they're out there in the community, right? Like Kirk Cousins is over at, Spire Credit Union signing autographs. Like you don't have that now. I think that's where things will eventually go. I think you'll see the two other things you'll start to see that are going to be big is like franchises being sold off, right, to inject some cash into the league, and then expansion. So that franchises being sold would be, to me, number one, because then when you expand, now you can sell those things off. So
yeah, and then you could bring in another team in that previous market because it was already.
Or I don't know, maybe put a team in, I don't know, San Diego or Oakland, where the NFL ripped their teams out, and it's been very successful in St. Louis to put a XFL or in this case UFL team.
Are the Battlehawks still part of the league then, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Danny Garcia.
So are you like?
No, I was never worried because we were literally the crown jewel of the league.
Sure. No, that makes sense.
So,
do you wish that? I'm excited. Do you wish they would have kept 8 and 8 teams?
No.
Oh, I would have loved that.
Okay.
But I think you're right. In terms of economically and financially, it's probably smarter to trim it down to 4 and 4. But like, it would have been, in my eyes, super cool if you were like fully merging these two leagues, kind of like what the NFL AFL and NFL did back in the day. Like, that would have been pretty awesome.
Yeah, but again, to me, the main benefit that you have now is all that condensed talent. So now the
Yeah.
games that we're going to see
Yep.
in late March are going to be really compelling because those teams are going to have, maybe 5 of the 8 teams are going to have good quarterbacks, right? That's important. I mean, obviously there's not enough talent. Fuck, there's not even enough talent in the NFL, right? Like, think about that. There's not enough talent in the NFL to even have 15 good quarterbacks, right? So it's even tougher to do that in the UFL, but now it's more feasible. And quarterback play is what's going to drive the league to success.
Yeah. That usually goes hand in hand with success is a quarterback. At least it's what brings in the interest. It's the most exciting element. Like, they talk about defense wins championships, but an offense surely, puts seats in the stands. Like, that's what people want. People want to see a game that's like, you know, 31-27. They don't want to see that Minnesota Vikings Oakland Raiders game that ended 3-0. Like, the interest isn't in the
I don't
defense
even think the
side.
players want to see it. I think they were falling asleep during the game.
Yeah. They probably let him get the field goal. Like, let's just get this thing over with. But
Yeah. So anyway, I mean, I'm excited for it. Um, I've had some frustrations along the way that I know are shared by others who follow the league. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I mean, they have a longer runway, I think, to get the league up and running and profitable.
and that starts as soon as the NFL ends, right? It's mid-Feb.
No, it's actually going to be March 30th. They're
Oh,
pushing
so they're pushing
which
it out a little bit.
which I do like too, in the sense that now you're not really going to be competing with March Madness like they did, right? Like, I mean, you're going to compete with maybe like the very end of March Madness, but now it's not like 4 of your 8 weeks or 4 of your 10 weeks. You're competing with that.
Well, especially with your playoffs too.
Yeah, I
Like,
mean, maybe you're competing with baseball, but the thing about baseball is every day, right? And like
you
I'm
would,
not excited about baseball at all. So
I think you would rather, meaning the XFL and USFL, would rather compete with the start of baseball than with March Madness.
yep,
That
couldn't
totally
agree
makes
more.
sense. Cool. All right. Well, with that, we will close out. So thank you for listening in to us today. We greatly appreciate it. We are Detention Block AA-23, a Star Wars podcast. I'm Mike, and here with Dustin, and looking forward to season 4 and a new year as we progress with this podcast. So have a great evening, great rest of your day. And with that, as always, may the force be with you.
And also with the PWHL team from Minnesota. Whoa.
I'm going to say, and with the pack, go pack, go.
Yeah, go Packers. Hey.
House money, baby. All right.